What if the biggest Descendants 6 reveal already happened and Disney didn't even call it that? Wicked Wonderland just dropped, and buried inside it is a twist so big, fans are already convinced it's setting up something way darker than anyone expected. Pink was introduced as Red's sweet little sister, the girl who trusts Red completely, the girl who fights beside her. But what if that's exactly the problem? What if the character everyone is calling the heart of the new movie is actually being set up as the villain of the next one? Today we're breaking down every clue hidden inside Wicked Wonderland that points toward Descendants 6. Why Pink might not stay innocent for long, and why this franchise just got a whole lot darker than Disney is letting on the surface. Wicked Wonderland looks like a clean, happy continuation. Red and Chloe fixed the past. The Queen of Hearts changed. Cinderella was safe. Everything should have felt settled. But instead of closing the story, this movie opened up more problems than it solved. Because the moment Red and Chloe changed history, they didn't erase danger, they created a brand new one. Maddox Hatter, once close to Red, becomes the villain of the film after the timeline shifts around him. That single detail matters more than it seems. It proves something the franchise has never said out loud before. Every time someone fixes the past fights back in a different form. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. And once a franchise establishes a pattern like that, it rarely uses it just once. If changing history created Maddox as a threat this time, what happens the next time the timeline gets disturbed? Who becomes the next unexpected villain? This is where Pink enters the picture, and honestly, once you notice what her character represents, you can't unsee it. Pink isn't just introduced as Red's sister for warmth or family drama. She's introduced right as the timeline cracks open. She exists because the past was rewritten. She is, in a very real sense, a product of the exact same unstable magic that turned Maddox into a villain. Think about that for a second. The film doesn't just give Red a new sister as a sweet bonus character. It gives her a sibling who only exists because reality itself was altered. That's not a small detail, that's a loaded setup. Wonderland has been shown across this franchise as unpredictable, chaotic, and never fully under control, even after the heroes win. If that same unstable magic is what created Pink, then Pink isn't just a new character. She's a walking consequence of broken time. And consequences in this franchise never stay quiet for long. They always resurface, usually right when the characters feel safest. Right now, everything about Pink feels comforting. She fights alongside Red, she trusts her. She's loyal. But loyalty built on unstable magic doesn't always hold. If the timeline shifts again, even slightly, it's not just villains like Maddox who could be affected. It could just as easily reach the people closest to Red, and that includes the sister she just gained. Every single Descendants film has followed a familiar formula. It introduces someone who feels safe at first, only to reveal later that they were always destined for conflict. Look at the pattern honestly. Maddox wasn't originally meant to be a villain either. He became one because of circumstances created by Red and Chloe's choices. That's the entire point the franchise keeps hammering home. Villains in this story aren't usually born evil. They're created by consequences nobody saw coming. Now apply that same logic to Pink. She's likable right now. She's protective of Red. She feels like an ally. But the franchise has trained its audience to distrust exactly that kind of introduction. The characters who feel the safest are often the ones with the most room to fall. And Pink has one thing working against her that no one else in this movie has. She exists purely because of a broken timeline. That gives her a connection to unstable magic that none of the other characters share, not even Maddox. If Wonderland's magic becomes unpredictable again, if the timeline cracks even slightly in a future film, Pink isn't just someone who could get caught in the middle. She could become the source of the next disaster without even meaning to. Imagine a version of Descendants 6 where the villain isn't someone acting out of revenge or ambition. Imagine a villain created entirely by accident, someone who never chose this path, but got pulled into it because of magic they didn't understand and didn't ask for. That's a far more emotional and complicated kind of villain than anything this franchise has done before. And it fits perfectly with where the story left off. Red already proved she rewrite history to protect the people she loves. But what if the next danger comes from protecting Pink specifically? What if keeping her safe means hiding the truth about how she came to exist? Secrets like that never stay buried in this franchise. They always surface at the worst possible moment, usually right when trust matters most. If Red keeps this secret from Chloe, from Pink herself, or from the kingdom, that secret becomes a ticking clock. And ticking clocks in this franchise always go off eventually. Here's something most viewers glossed over while watching Wicked Wonderland. Wonderland itself never actually stabilizes by the end of the movie. It's calm, sure. It looks fixed. But calm isn't the same as fixed, especially in a place built entirely on unpredictable magic. Every version of Wonderland shown across this franchise behaves the same way. It bends reality. It reacts to emotion. It doesn't follow normal rules, even when the story treats it like it does. So when the movie ends with everything looking peaceful, that peace should feel suspicious, not reassuring. Because if Wonderland's magic is what created Pink in the first place, then Wonderland never actually stopped being dangerous. It just stopped being loud about it. That's a very different kind of threat than a villain standing in front of you with a clear motive. This is a threat that hides inside comfort. It hides inside family. It hides inside the version of the story where everyone thinks they already won. If Descendants 6 leans into this, the next conflict might not start with an enemy attacking the kingdom. It might start with something small, a strange dream, an unexplained memory. A moment where Pink does something she can't explain, something that feels like it belongs to someone else's past. Small cracks like that are exactly how this franchise has built tension before, and they always lead somewhere much bigger. Now picture this playing out over an entire movie. Red slowly realizing something is wrong with her sister. Chloe noticing it too, but staying quiet to protect Red's feelings. Pink herself sensing that something inside her doesn't feel right, but not understanding why. That's not just a plot twist. That's a slow, emotional unraveling. And this franchise thrives on exactly that kind of tension. It's not about big battles right away. It's about trust slowly cracking apart from the inside. If Pink really is connected to the next major conflict, the emotional weight of that falls hardest on Red, not Chloe, not the kingdom, Red specifically. Because if Pink becomes dangerous, even accidentally, Red will be the one forced to decide what to do about her own sister. That's a completely different kind of conflict than anything this franchise has explored before. Fighting an outside villain is one thing. Fighting the possibility that someone you love might hurt people without meaning to is something else entirely. And knowing this franchise, it won't make that choice easy. Red has already proven she'd bend the rules, rewrite history, and take massive risks to protect the people she cares about. So what happens when protecting Pink means hiding the truth from everyone else? What happens when Chloe finds out Red knew something was wrong and said nothing? That kind of secret doesn't just create tension between characters, it threatens to break the exact friendship that carried the entire previous story. And that's what makes this theory so compelling. It's not really about a magical threat at all. It's about whether Red's loyalty to her sister will end up costing her the trust of her best friend. That's the kind of emotional stakes this franchise has been building toward, even if it hasn't said so directly yet. Nothing about Descendants 6 has been officially confirmed. No trailer, no villain reveal, no release date. But that's exactly why this theory holds up. Wicked Wonderland didn't just tell a self-contained story. It planted a character born from broken magic, left Wonderland's instability unresolved, and ended on a note that feels far from finished. That's not an accident. That's a pattern this franchise has used before every single sequel. If Descendants 6 does happen, the pieces are already sitting right there in plain sight. a sister created by unstable time magic, a magical world that never fully calmed down, a friendship that's never been tested by a secret this personal. Put those three things together, and you don't just get another villain movie, you get a story built on trust, guilt, and consequences nobody saw coming. So here's the real question worth sitting with. If Pink really is connected to the next crisis in Wonderland, is she a villain, or is she a victim of magic she never asked for? That's the kind of gray area this franchise hasn't fully explored yet, and it might be exactly the direction it's heading. So, what do you think? Is Pink destined to become Wonderland's next big threat, or is the timeline itself the real danger waiting to resurface? Drop your theories in the comments. I read every single one, and your idea might shape our next breakdown. If this video kept you hooked, hit like, subscribe,